Today we're going to be looking at the best value tourist trip in all of New York City. This excursion is the Staten Island Ferry. Before we go on, remember to hit subscribe to be updated for all my new content. The Staten Island Ferry runs between Lower Manhattan and St. George on Staten Island. The trip takes about an hour and is on the iconic bright orange double-decker Staten Island Ferry that you can often see plying across New York Harbour. The ferry is absolutely free, so today we'll be leaving from Lower Manhattan, taking it across to St. George, turning around and coming back. To get to the ferry terminal, you can catch the subway on either the 1 line or the R or W lines. The ferry leaves from the Staten Island Ferry Terminal in Lower Manhattan, obviously, which is a huge space. You might find that people approach you here and try to convince you that you have to pay for the ferry. That is not the case. It's free. It's always been free. It will always be free. So don't fall for that. The ferries run regularly, 24 hours a day. Rain, hail, snow, and are very rarely cancelled because commuters on Staten Island rely on them to get to work. I'm not sure of the actual capacity of the ferries, but they are huge. So all the people you see here will easily fit into a single double-decker ferry. And if not, the next one is only half an hour away. The onboarding process is quite orderly. You can see that disabled people have no issue. There are ramps that lead down to the actual ferry. It does take a few minutes to get on board, but you'll see that this crowd rapidly disperses once we get on board. This is a Saturday afternoon crowd, so probably a higher proportion of sightseers. The crowd during the weekday off-peak would be much less, and obviously during peak hours on weekdays it would be much busier. But the ferry takes them all, and so you shouldn't have any trouble doing a small sightseeing trip. We're not going to cover Staten Island itself today. That's a subject for another day. We're just covering the ferry ride across and some of the sightseeing that you can do from the ferry. There are a number of different ferries. Today we're on the Guy Molinari. All up, the doors are open for about 10 minutes, which gives you ample time to board, find a comfortable spot, either inside or out, depending on whether it's your first trip or whether you do this every day. There are 2 decks and outside seating for both decks. You can also stand in the bow or stern to get a great view. As you can see, there's plenty of room once the crowd gets on board, plenty of space to spread out. Be aware though, if you want to catch a sight of the Statue of Liberty, you need to be on the right hand side or the starboard side going to Staten Island. And that does get a little crowded sometimes, especially on the weekend. As mentioned earlier, the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island will be on the right hand side or starboard side as you head towards Staten Island. A reminder, all the views are free. But don't be these guys, paying $100 for a cruise to see the exact same thing. You can stand at the bow, and you're very close to the water there, so you get much more of a sense of being on the water. Here we see another partner ferry coming across on the return trip from Staten Island, and in the background, way in the background, is the Verrazano Narrows Bridge. This is the outside of the upper starboard deck. On the weekend, everyone's here to catch a glimpse of the Statue of Liberty and Ellis Island, so mostly sightseers. This was filmed at the height of the pandemic, so every second seat is blocked off for social distancing reasons. There's still plenty of room for everyone, and the ferry could take many more than we saw at the entry hall. On the trip over to Staten Island, the views from the stern are amazing. There's a panorama of the entire New York City landscape, from New Jersey on the left, downtown in the middle, and Brooklyn to the right. It's the best view of New York City that you'll get. And oh yeah, it's free. As we get closer to Staten Island, the crowd starts to go towards the off-ramps, but there's no hurry. The boat stops for at least 10 minutes, so you have plenty of time to get off. It's worth noting that if you're going to do the return trip, you do have to actually disembark and re-embark through the normal boarding process. As we cross the harbour, there's lots of commercial shipping, container ships and the like, sailing out, and some of them are massive. This is a big MSC ship loaded with containers. It's an absolutely glorious summer day today, but this ferry makes the trip in any sort of weather, so I imagine it's quite exciting when it's snowing. As I said before, there's no rush to get off. The ramp comes down and everyone charges off, but the boat stays in port for quite a long time. You disembark directly into a shopping centre and connections to all the other transport. There's actually a New York subway line on Staten Island, so you can take that to the other end of Staten Island, and there are buses, etc. Snug Harbour is just around the corner, and you can see all the other ferries here as well. Ferries leave every 30 minutes to an hour, so there's no shortage of them. There are some nice cafes and other shopping over on the Staten Island side, so you could spend an hour or two over here. And here's the entrance to go back to Manhattan. It's pretty simple. There are some gates that look like toll gates or ticket gates, but you don't need a ticket to go back either. To go back, look for the blue sign saying ferry to Manhattan, and just go into the waiting room and wait for the next ferry. That's it for our excursion out to Staten Island. It's very economical. If you're with your family, it costs absolutely nothing, and it's a beautiful day out, especially if the weather cooperates. Please remember to subscribe to my channel and hit like if you appreciate my content. It really helps me out. Thanks.